Just like to offer a big shout out to Touchdown Digital, the sponsor of this week's video. Well, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Glenn Summer and you're watching Sniper Photography. Today, well, first up, I've been asked a lot about the macro photography that I do and what equipment that they want to know. People want to know what equipment you need. Well, I use the equipment that suits me. However, if you have never tried macro photography, which I suggest you do, because what it does, it teaches you patience and it teaches you how to observe the greater world around you, especially the small world. And if you're a landscape photographer like I am, if you undertake macro photography, it will improve your landscape photography because of just what I've just said. It makes you very observant of the scene around you. But getting back to the equipment now, if you're thinking about doing macro photography and you haven't got a macro lens, there's one really good alternative, and that is these extension tubes. Now, basically all these things are just hollow metal rings. That's all they are, right? There's my finger there. You buy them in sets of 3. I've got the Kenko brand. They were about $40, would you believe, for 3. They start at 13mm, then 21mm and 31mm. And what these do, these separate your lens from your sensor. It pushes the lens further away from your sensor. And what happens then is that by using these extension tubes, you begin to get greater magnification. Now, here I just have my normal Canon digital SLR, full frame. You can use a crop sensor body, which if you were to do that, that would even increase your magnification even more to the point where you've got to step back. But full frame, digital SLR Canon, and here is a 50mm 1.8 nifty 50 lens, just a normal standard 50mm lens. Now, if you haven't got one of these, I suggest you buy one because every photographer should have a 50mm lens in their kit bag. You can pick up 50mm lenses rather cheap. They're not expensive, even the 1.4s. This is a 1.8 50mm. Good 50mm lens this. They're really handy to have. But they come into their own really when it comes to macro photography combined with extension tubes. So all we do is we attach the tube to the lens, or you can do it either way. You can push it, put the extension ring on the camera first. I like to put it on the lens first. So all you do, you just line it all up. Now there we have it there. So there's the 50mm lens, and this is the 31mm extension tube. So all I do now is fit that to my camera, like so. And there we have it. You can see the extension there. So we've pushed the lens further away from the sensor. Now the sensor is here. That's what that mark is. So it's a fair way away. Now what this does, this will give you almost 1-to-1 magnification for about $40. Now, I've used these before and they do work. Now, that is the 31 I've put on there. If that's too much magnification, you can either come back a bit or you can put on a 13mm or 21mm. I tend to use the 21mm if I'm going to use one of these on this 50mm lens. Now, this is a standard lens. It's not a macro lens. So it's a very good alternative if you're just starting out with macro photography. You don't have to go out and spend $1,500 to $2,000 on a macro lens. You might like macro photography, but I suggest you try it because it's just an incredible thing to do. You'll see some images as we go along in this video, but extension tubes are good for people that just want to dabble in a little bit of macro photography, but I can guarantee you, I'll give you a gold-plated guarantee, once you get involved with macro photography, you will be looking at probably buying a macro lens, a proper 1-to-1. Now, these extension tubes work really well on fixed focal length lenses. You can use them on zooms like 24 to 70 or 24 to 105. But I find that if you're going to use extension tube, a 50mm lens is fantastic. It's just because you haven't got as much glass element in a 50mm lens. That's probably why they're cheaper to buy. But if you've got a 50mm lens, go and buy yourself a set of 3 extension tubes, right? And just give that a go. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at what you can achieve with these extension tubes. Now, as usual, there's a downside to things, and there's a downside to these. The longer the focal length lens you have and you use an extension tube, you lose a fair amount of light. But I found if I was to use this, or when I want to travel lightly, the 50mm lens with an extension tube, I don't lose all that much light. But with macro photography, or my macro photography, personal macro photography, is done with a speed light or a flash. So I'm not really worried about loss of light by using an extension tube. But these extension tubes will work for you. As I said, you can buy them from $25 up to $100. I suggest you look at ones around about the $50 to $70 mark. You can get them on Amazon. Very, very good to use. And all they are is a bit of plastic with a bit of metal. This is the autofocus version. Keep that in mind, even though with macro photography, 99.9% of the time we're manual focusing. So I don't necessarily need these autofocus contact points, but I just thought I'd buy them anyway because all my lenses and cameras are autofocus. So, but either way, either a manual focus extension tubes or autofocus, it doesn't matter. I suggest you get yourself a couple of these, or just a set of 3, and try them. You'll be really surprised at what you can achieve. And just look at some of these images as I'm talking to you. These are all taken with a 50mm fixed prime lens, Nifty 50, and a 13mm extension tube. So that's the results you can get. So I just thought I'd put that out there to you all. Yeah, it's quite an interesting subject. Extension tubes for people that are thinking about coming or getting into macro photography for the first time and they're not quite sure and they don't want to whether spend a lot of money or lose interest and then have a macro lens that's not going to be much value to them. Though a good macro lens, a 90 to 100mm macro lens, is a fantastic portrait lens because of the way they work, the way macro lenses work with shallow depth of field. But if you're new to macro photography and you don't want to spend that much money, get a prime lens like this, 50mm, whack on an extension tube as you can see there, and Bob's your uncle. I think you'll be very, very pleasantly surprised at the results you get. So that's it for another episode of Sniper Photography. Thank you for joining me here. Thank you to all the new subscribers. There's been quite a few come on board here lately. I much appreciate it. So until next time, as I always say, be nice to yourself, family and friends, but most of all, you keep shooting, keep smiling. Bye for now.